left. I'm curious, what motivated you to become involved in this issue in the first place?
My journey with this legislation started when a group of women came to the council with claims against their doctor. 200 women would come forward with allegations of abuse against disgraced OBGYN Robert Haddon. And he would be sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for sexual assault in July of 2023. So these are survivors that bravely came forward then and now to denounce youth detention centers, for example. And that was really what motivated me. I've done a lot of work on these issues in my time in the council, expanding resources for domestic violence survivors, but also championing a package of legislation of 11 bills to stop sexual harassment when I was chair of the Women's Caucus. So it's been something that I've really been working on, and I'm hoping to continue to do so alongside the brave survivors who have really taken this on.
We've been speaking this morning with Councilmember Carlina Rivera. She sponsors the Gender Motivated Violence Protection Act. Councilmember, thank you. Come back and see us again, please.
Thank you.
WNYC is supported by the Zimmerle Art Museum on the New Brunswick campus of Rutgers University, currently presenting Indigenous identities, here, now, and always. Curated by Jean Quick-to-See Smith. Information at zimmerle.rutgers.edu. Sponsoring WNYC means reaching hundreds of thousands of engaged and discerning listeners who've made our shows part of their daily routine. Find more on sharing your business message with WNYC's unique audience at wnyc.org/sponsorship.
It is 6:52. You're listening to Morning Edition on WNYC. 41 and clear right now. Mostly sunny and 51 today and gusty. And then tomorrow, March 1st, mostly sunny and 55. So another mild one there. Gusty, but watch out for the cold Saturday night. Really cold and windy with that wind chill. Yes, the wind chill in the mid-teens. That's ahead of Sunday, where Sunday's high is near freezing. A high temperature of 33 on Sunday. 41 and clear now. It's 6:53.
The slow economic shockwaves of government layoffs.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by The Economist, devoted to providing independent journalism that makes sense of the news shaping the world. More at economist.com or with The Economist app, newsletters, and podcasts.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore, in for David Brancaccio. Current and former workers at the U.S. Agency for International Development are being allowed into USAID headquarters in Washington, D.C. today for a second day for 15 minutes to pack up their belongings. But the federal government's layoffs are being felt across the country, not just in D.C. Marketplace's Nancy Marshall-Genzer talked to a USAID contractor in Oklahoma about what's happening there.
47-year-old Patricia Gross has worked as an independent government contractor, a gig worker, since 2018. She, her husband, and 3 young sons live just outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Nonprofits hired her to write applications for federal grants, mostly from USAID and the Agriculture Department. Now the nonprofits are out of work, and so is Gross. So the family is dependent on her husband's salary.
I think right now we're okay, but I mean, it's concerning. Last year I did really well, and we bought a house last summer based on my income, increasing our family income.
Gross says she made about $75,000 last year. She has a side gig helping people write their resumes. She only made about $1,000 doing that in 2024. Now, former resume clients are back. They're federal workers or contractors who are also out of work. Gross says her heart breaks for them, but there's no time to waste.
The advice I've been giving my clients is that people are mourning now. And if you wait a month, everybody is going to start really looking for a job. And there's not that many jobs out there.
Gross herself applied for a few jobs last weekend on LinkedIn, but she got messages back telling her, sorry, the position's been canceled. I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer for Marketplace.
The U.S. is a consumer-driven economy. Consumers account for almost 70% of U.S. GDP. And when enough consumers agree on something, they have been able to turn that economic power into social or political power, most famously with boycotts. Boycotts gained fame in the U.S. in the 50s and 60s as part of the civil rights movement. One campaign that's gained some traction on social media recently calls for an economic blackout today, a total boycott of all consumer spending by Americans to protest the influence of billionaires, corporations, and political parties. The idea originated with a little-known activist group called the People's Union USA. Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman has more.
People's Union founder John Schwartz posted on Instagram that he doesn't expect most Americans to boycott all retail today.
The majority of them are still going to shop on this Friday. That's not the point. The point is that those who don't are choosing to stand together
and build momentum against big corporations and the politicians who support them. But, says management professor Braden King at Northwestern's Kellogg School,
lots of consumers will say they're going to boycott. Very few consumers do.
King says boycotts rarely have a lasting economic impact.
Even if, let's say, 5% of consumers are going to boycott, that would be a huge number. They'll probably, if they need to buy something, just go and do it the following day. And so it wouldn't really show up in the revenue numbers.
A national consumer boycott could still make a difference, says sociologist David S. Meyer at UC Irvine.
It's an opportunity to talk about a whole variety of grievances, and it gives people something to do.
Like get involved.
People who decide to boycott are more likely to call their congressional representative, go out to a demonstration,
and vote against politicians who back social and economic policies they don't like. I'm Mitchell Hartman for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up around 0.4%, with Dow futures up 158 points. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.263%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Thinkorswim. More at schwab.com.
Amazon yesterday unveiled its first ever quantum computing chip. This follows similar announcements from Microsoft and Google. Research into quantum computing used to happen mostly at academic labs, but private sector investment in quantum computing has grown tenfold in the past decade. Marketplace's Daniel Ackerman looked into why tech firms are spending so much on a technology that hasn't yet actually proven its commercial viability.
Your everyday computer runs on bits. A quantum computer runs on quantum bits, or qubits. And these qubits harness the behavior of subatomic particles, which, says MIT research scientist Andrew McAfee, can make them a pain to work with.
You have to kind of coax them into being, and you've got to wrangle them in these very weird conditions.
For instance, he says MIT has a quantum computing lab on campus that is the coldest place, period.
In other words, down closer to absolute zero than any other place in the universe we know about. And the reason is to kind of convince qubits to hang around a little bit longer and come together in ways that we can harness.
On the most basic level, an ordinary computer bit is like an on-off switch. It either represents 1 or 0. Qubits work differently, says Heather West, a research manager at IDC.
Qubits rely on quantum properties that allow them to hold the values of 0, 1, or any value in between.
She says quantum processors could do calculations that are functionally impossible with today's computers.
That will allow for scientists and engineers in the long run to be able to solve complex problems that have eluded them.
Quantum computers could speed up things like drug discovery, materials science, or the pricing of risk in the insurance industry. But Amy Webb, CEO of Future Today Institute, says it could take years to get there.
This is a field that really has a very long horizon ahead of it in terms of research and development, scaling, and getting these concepts into market.
And that can be tricky for companies seeking investor dollars.
Because investors have ever-shortening expectations for when they're going to see a return.
But quantum computing is likely to become so valuable, says Andrew McAfee of MIT, it makes sense for tech firms to spend on it now. At least the firms with deep enough pockets.
That allows them to extend their timeline beyond, next quarter or what we're going to put in the annual report next year.
Because McAfee says for whoever manages to scale quantum computing, the returns will be there. Eventually. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
And in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From 8 p.m., American Public Media.
WNYC supporters include